Chapter 91 I'm Here to Save You. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, this way. Watch your step, there's a fire pit up ahead. With the jackal head's enthusiastic directions, Adam reached the bottom of the fire lake, situated beneath the platform. The fire lake was a sulphurous inferno, yet oddly, there were no flames at the bottom, just a powerful stench of sulphur. The empty metal racks looked like they were waiting for new souls to be chained. You said Amit can't devour souls without Anubis's say-so. So why are all the cages in the fire lake empty? Adam asked. Well, only a few living folks have wandered in here over the last few millennia. There aren't any dead souls. The jackal head didn't seem to think anything was amiss. Only the living. Yeah. Looks like the underworld's gone haywire since the gods left. The jackal head quickly added, which is why I have to maintain the last bit of order around here. Ignoring the jackal head, Adam felt his suspicions solidify. But first things first, he needed to find Uther and the others. What about the Amits you mentioned? Where are they? Amit was supposed to be a monster with a crocodile head, a lion's torso, and a hippo's hindquarters, a combination of all the creatures Egyptians feared, representing hell's judgment, yet, despite thorough Egyptian research, no one had ever found this mythical beast. Academics figured it was either extinct or just a made-up creature by Egyptian sorcerers. Muggles weren't the only ones who made things up, wizards did it too. Take the Quibbler, for instance, it was rumored to publish fabricated creatures all the time. Logically, they should be patrolling the entire fire lake cage. Maybe they're just bored since there are no souls to guard. We should spot them if we keep going. The jackal head was starting to sweat a bit, but he still led the way. They heard yelling ahead, finally something different. But Adam stopped dead in his tracks as they got closer. In front of him, a metal frame held souls captive. Flames spewed from below, burning the wailing souls. Souls get roasted alive in the fire lake cage. The jackal head stumbled. Adam grabbed him by the ear and dragged him close. Of course, what else would they be doing here, enjoying the view? He asked innocently. This was hell, after all. Adam hadn't expected this fake underworld to be so accurately rendered. Just then, a soul seemed to notice Adam and the jackal head. His eyes lit up, and he started babbling in ancient Egyptian. Sorry, don't speak the language. Adam grabbed the jackal head's ear again and took off running. Hey! My ears, that the metal racks weren't neatly lined up but scattered across the fire lake cage. After finding two souls and realizing things weren't right, Adam stopped. He pulled out a cloud card. Seal released, the atmosphere solidified. First, a gentle smile formed, followed by golden hair and a graceful figure. Adam. Wind, no time for pleasantries. Help me find Uther, you've seen him before. Okay. Sensing the contractor's urgency, one of the four elemental spirits that shaped the world surged with magic. A blue mist swept across the endless landscape in a heartbeat. Found him. This way. The jackal head, finally freed from the ear pulling, was in tears. He pulled at his ears, checking if they were different lengths. But then Adam grabbed both ears and yanked him forward again. Ack. My ears. Shut it. Ah woo-hoo-hoo. The wind card sealed the jackal head's mouth with an air current, muffling his wails. Guided by the wind card, Adam found Uther quickly. He was relieved to see that Uther was okay. He was tied to a metal frame but wasn't wailing like the others. His chest was cut open, revealing a golden scarab inside. Protective magic surrounded him. Adam recognized it. He had cast protective magic on Uther before, but he hadn't expected it to protect his soul, too. Adam quickly cast a protective spell on Marion, who was nearby. Then he ran to Uther, reaching out to his roommate with the gaping chest wound. Uther. I'm here to rescue you. Adam, what? Uther saw Adam walking toward him. He should have been celebrating his rescue, but he couldn't help but cry. Fear, joy, emotion, grief, all the suppressed feelings burst to the surface. Uther could barely keep himself from bawling. Adam patted Uther's shoulder, signaling him to calm down. He went behind him and summoned the mithril sword. These chains can't be untied. Snap, that the sword sliced through the metal frame and chain as if cutting through butter. The jackal head shut his mouth and tried to disappear. After freeing Marion, Adam held Uther, who was now crying even louder, giving him a shoulder to cry on. He discovered another love card with the power to directly touch the soul. Marion sat weakly on the ground, his eyes filled with complex emotions as he looked at Adam, a person he'd only met once. The sudden shield that had blocked the flames was proof enough of something. But he hadn't expected Adam to come all the way here to save his son. Tuya had told him that Hufflepuffs valued friendship, but seeing it firsthand was unbelievable. Ugh, cough, cough. After letting out his emotions, Uther started to regain his senses. He realized he was in Adam's arms and felt embarrassed. Luckily, his soul form didn't produce tears or snot. Otherwise, he might have just fainted. To his relief, Adam seemed oblivious. Once he stopped crying, Adam released him and turned to Marion. "Sir, let's go. I know how to heal Uther's heart." "No, unlike Uther, I was already dead when my soul left my body. I can feel that I'll soon be going to the real underworld." Marion shook his head, smiling sadly at his son before turning to Adam. "Take Uther back with you. Saving Uther is all I ask. I'm truly happy that Uther has you as a friend. Your friendship even makes me a little envious. Knowing you're here, I can leave in peace." "What?" The jackal head was stunned, but Adam wasn't surprised. "This isn't the underworld, is it? While this isn't the real underworld, it must have some properties of one. Besides, the scales up there are probably the treasure of Anubis." Marion started to say something, but he noticed he was becoming more transparent. He looked at Uther. "It seems I don't have much time. Remember to take those scales and tell your mother I love her." With his last words, Marion turned into a silvery gray substance, swirling and vanishing into thin air. Uther burst into tears again. What did he mean by that? That the jackal head felt like his world was collapsing. "This isn't the underworld. How is that possible? This place is clearly. What you should be worried about isn't whether this is the underworld." Adam, holding Uther's shoulders, turned to the jackal head. "It's that there aren't any Amits here." Jackal head. Crap. Now he'd find out if this was the underworld or not. Chapter 92 Deathly Hallows, Egyptian Limited Edition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jackal head trailed Adam and the others back to the platform, looking defeated. But Adam didn't seem to be planning on ripping him open. The seal's broken. Adam summoned the double card and pulled out Uther's heart. Seeing his own heart in front of him was a lot for Uther to take in. But watching it split into two, he was completely floored. A mix of shock and confusion plastered on his face. Adam took off the feather of truth and, after a moment's thought, stowed it away. Then, he carefully placed the two hearts on either side of the scale. After a bit of wobbling, the scale leveled out, emitting a golden glow. Adam noticed something dark and smoky rising from both hearts. At the same time, Uther felt a sensation. "I think I'm gonna," before he could finish, Uther vanished. "He's back in his body," Jackalhead offered quickly, seeing Adam turn his way. "How do I get his heart back to normal?" Adam asked, eyeing the heart in his hand. You just kinda, shove it back in. I guess. Look, I really don't know. Everyone I've tried this on ends up tossed in the fire lake. I've never seen a heart go back into the body." Seeing Jackalhead on the verge of tears, Adam knew he was out of luck. He pocketed Uther's heart and stared at the other one, lost in thought. The double card's magic only lasts a day, but even if it doesn't matter if I don't cancel it. The parallel world influenced by the double card will be overwritten by the current timeline, so, guess I'll hold on to it for now. Adam put away the extra heart and headed to the scales. He remembered Uther's father saying he wanted it back. The instant he touched the scale, Adam's protective magic kicked in. He was slightly surprised but shrugged it off, focusing on pulling the scale out of the platform floor. 3 seconds passed. Nothing. Power card, seals broken. Rumble. As Adam yanked the scale free, the platform vibrated violently beneath his feet. Cracks like spiderwebs spread across the surface. He immediately activated Xianpai's magic. Help! Jackalhead's ears rang. As his feet lifted off the ground, a sharp pain shot through the connection between his ears and his head. Seeing Jackalhead's predicament, Adam took pity and grabbed him by the shoulders. Thankfully, the power card was still in effect, making it easy to lift him. The shattered platform plunged into the fiery lake below, but the rumbling didn't stop. Instead, increasingly loud explosions erupted from the depths. Roar. With a deafening roar, a massive maw, taking up nearly 2/3 of the lake, burst forth and swallowed Adam whole. Is that it? The mouth looked like a crocodile's, and with the way it appeared, Adam naturally made the connection. He shot Jackalhead a look of slight disgust, which Jackalhead immediately picked up on. Hey, I was only a little smaller than that when I wasn't shrunk, okay? Okay, maybe more than a little. Jackalhead stared down at Amit, a mix of emotions churning inside. Adam waved the dark staff, and the falling platform shards transformed into massive boulders under the influence of the big name, smashing the giant mouth into pieces. Magma spewed from the wounds. It's not a real animal. Jackal thought he detected a hint of disappointment in the kid's voice. Then, a sort of energy, like a falling meteor, sliced through the air, growing larger as it descended, and cleaved the monster maw in two. Jackalhead. Inedible garbage. When Adam's gaze shifted back to him, Jackalhead froze, his blood running cold. Good news, he seemed to have survived. Bad news, he thought he knew why he had survived. As he was shrunk and placed in a glass jar, Jackalhead silently wiped his tears. On the way back, Adam rounded up a few rune snakes and manticores. Then, unable to take the desert heat, he used the moving cards to teleport directly to Uther's house. The first floor was empty. He found Uther on the second floor, eyes open but still lying in bed. Home alone. Isn't that your doing? Uther replied, leaning against the pillow, a weak smile on his face. His voice was a little hoarse. Turns out there were people pulling strings behind the scenes. My mom's gone to arrest them. Your aunt trusts me a little too much, don't you think? You saved my life. She trusts you more than anyone now. Adam was speechless for a moment. He pulled a chair over and sat down beside Uther. Let's get your heart back in place. You're kind of freaking me out like this. Do you even know what to do? Just shove it back in. I guess. There was uncertainty in Uther's voice. Ready to go? Maybe you should do it yourself. Adam hesitated, hand hovering over Uther's chest. He just couldn't bring himself to do it. Reaching into Uther's chest to grab the scarab amulet and then shoving the heart back in sounded way too much like gutting a fish. Do it myself? Uther's eyes widened, a bitter smile playing on his lips. Dude, my soul was burning in fire for ages, and I just got back into my body. I can barely lift my hands. How am I supposed to do it? Oh, right. Adam sighed, accepting his fate. He picked up the heart and held it over Uther's chest. Which side is up? Uther. Thankfully, the magic that extracted the heart didn't completely erase Adam's basic biology knowledge. After the scarab amulet was removed, the heart floated back into Uther's chest, and the flesh and blood closed up on its own. According to Uther, his heart had floated to the scales on its own in a similar fashion. So, what is this thing, anyway? Adam asked, pulling out the shrunken scales. It's one of the artifacts left behind by Anubis in Egyptian legend. It can judge lies and crimes. Anyone who's ever told a lie won't be able to pass the test. Adam whistled. No wonder even Uther couldn't pass. Is there anyone who has never told a lie? Wait a minute. Don't you know this thing pretty well? How did you fall for it? Like I said, someone was messing with things. It's a group of people who've been unhappy with our family ruling Egypt for a long time. We thought it was just another Anubis artifact, the Book of Death. As long as you're a descendant of the pharaoh, you can take it out safely. By the time things went wrong, it was too late to turn back. Anubis left behind so many artifacts. Adam couldn't help but think to himself, if Anubis is the Egyptian god of death, then these items are basically the Deathly Hallows, Egypt Limited Edition. Chapter 93. Some people seem to have survived, but in fact. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uther's eyes dimmed, his lips barely parting as he began recounting what happened. We saw the linen cloth after entering the stone door. Only a pharaoh's descendants could pass through. We knew something was wrong, but the door slammed shut behind us. Just as my father was about to use the key, a priest jumped into action. He took a deep breath. A priest of Shu. He used some kind of ancient magic. A gust of wind instantly swept us, including him, to the other side of the linen. All the priests vanished. My father and I were forced into the artifacts trial. I was the first to be tested, and then. Adam already knew the rest, but his understanding was totally off. Who would have guessed Uther's father brought a traitor among the priests? His father wasn't the first pharaoh to fall for that trick. Only pharaohs or heirs could pass through the linen. And those two Adam saw in the Lake of Fire's cage, were they elders of Set? Looks like Amit devoured their souls. I'm sorry for your loss, Adam said, patting Uther's hand. He noticed how cold it was, glanced at Uther's bare chest, and paused. Are you cold? But even though Adam had rushed to Himnaputra, it was already noon when he got the letter. The sun was setting no matter how fast he went, so, Uther was definitely feeling the chill. My clothes are in that closet. Help me pick something out. After Uther was dressed, Adam steered them back to the topic. Those guys messing with you, do you want my help? I'll let you know if I need it. Uther smiled at Adam's surprised expression. You think I'd refuse? For the glory of the pharaoh? I'd say no to anyone else, but not you. Uther looked directly at Adam. In the name of Ammonius-Ra, throughout the land the Nile flows, wherever Ammonius-Ra's glory shines, Adam Reed shares in all the glory of the son of Ammonius-Ra. Adam felt a subtle connection to the land beneath his feet. Uther's words felt like more than just words. Touched, Adam couldn't help but say, the Nile flows through more than just Egypt. Egypt's Ministry of Magic isn't just about ruling Egypt, Uther replied with a smile. Adam, holy crap. Hesitantly, Adam looked at him. Don't turn me down, Adam. You don't know what your arrival means to me. I was strapped to that metal frame, my soul burning. The only people who could save me were my mother and you. Uther took Adam's hand, seeing him about to speak. But I knew if my mother came, we'd both fall into their trap. You were my only hope. You have no idea how relieved I was when I saw that familiar light ball protecting me from the flames. I don't know about relieved, but I think I cried pretty ugly, Adam said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Uther pulled his hand away, trying to hide his irritation. Basically, everything I have is yours to share. The atmosphere lightened. Adam nodded. Okay, then I won't hold back. Uther smiled with satisfaction. But that's not what I wanted to say. Here, take this. Adam handed Uther the scale and the feather of truth, which he accepted without question. Then, Adam pulled out a familiar-looking heart. Uther never knew what to do with this thing, Adam sighed, looking at the heart. I figured if something went wrong putting yours back, we'd have a spare. But now it's pointless. In my culture, you are what you eat. Since your heart was ripped out and put back, you must be weak. What if I stew this to help you recover? Uther spent the next 5 minutes explaining he didn't need a heart supplement. Are you sure? I've never made human heart, but it should be similar to pig heart. Add some dangshan, astragalus and wolfberries, and it'll taste great. Adam asked again, persistent. Pig heart is acceptable, but mine is off the table. Uther refused firmly. Oh, all right then. Adam glanced at the still fresh, even beating heart. Finally, he gave in, used magic, and returned it. Seeing the heart vanish, Uther sighed in relief. Speaking of which, we're pretty in sync. You figured out the clues I left behind so quickly. I just took a stab in the dark. By the way, what's in the rest of the box? Just a few keepsakes from when I was a kid. Uther said casually, then seemed to remember something. Wait, don't look, he regretted it immediately. Adam wasn't initially interested in the box's contents, but Uther's reaction piqued his curiosity. He dragged the box closer, determined to find whatever made Uther lose his composure. Adam wanted to guess based on Uther's reaction, but Uther seemed to anticipate this, closing his eyes and pretending to be dead on the bed. Adam had to search himself. This doesn't look like it. This shouldn't be either. This, definitely not. This, Adam found a small notebook. The first page held a stern warning: anyone who opens this diary with impure intentions, I will strangle them like a bird. Adam felt he'd heard that line before. Hearing Adam read the sentence, Uther, still feigning death, visibly flinched. Adam, not missing this, smirked and flipped to a random page. The sound of the turning pages made Uther open his eyes, glaring. Didn't you see the curse on the first page? Oh. So it was a curse. Adam feigned realization, then tilted his head. But I have the authority of the Pharaoh now, so no curse should affect me, right? And you gave me the box. This diary is mine. Uther. April 7th, sunny. I'm in a bad mood today because my mother, shut up. Still weak, Uther desperately tried to sit up and grab the diary, but Adam pushed him back down with one hand, holding the diary high with the other, and continued reading. Because Mom spanked me today. It was clearly Mtlnovel who bit her skirt. What does that have to do with me? One day I'll feed all of Mom's skirts to Mtlnovel, let him tear and bite them at will. Adam turned, looking at Uther. You're pretty good to Mtlnovel. Please stop reading. This is. Please. No. Don't. Chapter 94. Adam reassures parents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tuya stormed back home, smelling of blood and ready to kill, only to find her son sprawled on the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, looking like he'd already been beaten to death. Tuya. Where's Adam? He left. Uther mumbled after a pause. Left? Tuya frowned, giving Uther a disapproving look. Didn't I tell you to have Adam stay in Egypt longer? He saved your life. And you just let him walk out. Uther knew Adam had saved him, but he'd almost been killed by Adam in a different way just now. He couldn't tell his mom about the diary, that would be suicide. So, he gave her the official version. I asked him to stay, but Adam said things are probably going to get crazy busy for us soon, so we should postpone the celebration. Plus, he rushed over here as soon as he got the letter, so he was in a hurry to get back and let his family know he's okay. Tuya nodded, understanding. What Adam said made sense. Now that the enemy's plan had failed, it was time to strike back, and Adam needed to check in with his folks after a sudden departure, responsible and thoughtful. Also, Adam suggested that if things get too hairy, he could take me to England to live for a while. I think it's a good plan. Tuya looked sharply at her son, surprised. Uther had some power, sure, but he was still a kid. Without Marion, she had to run the Ministry of Magic and fight off enemies in the shadows. Uther would be a liability here. Tuya had already considered this, but she couldn't bring herself to say it to him. It was a relief that Adam had taken the initiative, and that Uther seemed okay with it. Walking over to her son, Tuya bent down and touched her forehead to his. I'm sorry, Uther, but I promise you can invite Adam over to visit during the next school break. It's okay, Mom. Your safety is what matters most. I will. They chatted for a bit. Adam went home, told his mom the situation was resolved, had dinner, and then used the transfer card to pop back into Uther's room. Tuya was still there. Hey. Hi, Mrs. Tuya. Hope I'm not interrupting. Uther, have you made up your mind? That he greeted Tuya and then turned to Uther, flashing a smile that would put any parent at ease. I'm going with you. Uther answered immediately. Adam, why don't you just send Uther to Diagon Alley? There should be places for him to stay there. Tuya suddenly suggested. Mom, Uther looked at her, puzzled. It's no secret you're going to Hogwarts. If they can't find you in Egypt, they might look for you in England. Adam and his family could be in danger. Uther was shocked. He hadn't thought of that, plus, he knew something his mom didn't. Adam's parents were squibs. If they were targeted, things would be even worse. Don't worry, Mrs. Tuya, I've got it covered. Adam's response made Uther look at him in confusion. Adam gave him a reassuring glance. I've set up a safe house for Uther, protected by the Fidelius charm. But because of that, his life there might not be super comfortable. That's great, Tuya sighed in relief. I didn't expect you to be so prepared, Adam. And honestly, it's not a vacation spot, just make sure he doesn't starve. Uther. She was right, but something still felt off. Anyway, after one last meal in Egypt, Uther went with Adam on his journey to England. Since the card couldn't transport living things, Adam had to use the apparition he'd just learned. Ugh. As soon as they landed, Uther, still weak, collapsed onto the grass and threw up. Deep breaths. It's normal to react like that the first time. Adam seemed used to it. The feeling of being squeezed by the surrounding space was awful, like your insides were getting rearranged. He'd almost puked the first time himself. Wait, haven't you ever operated with someone before? After throwing up, Uther took the tissue Adam handed him and wiped his mouth. Thanks. When did you even learn that spell? I thought it was really hard. Adam tossed a cleansing charm at the mess on the ground and thought back. Well, maybe a month or two before the break. I learned it because I was bored. There's a similar spell in my cloud cards, so it came pretty naturally. Uther struggled to calm both his stomach and his mind after hearing Adam say he'd learned apparition out of boredom. He looked around. Where's this safe house you mentioned? If it was easy to find, it wouldn't be a safe house. Adam smiled mysteriously and whispered in Uther's ear. As the secret was shared, Uther watched a house suddenly materialize in front of them, as if it had sprung up from the ground. Is that the Fidelius charm? Yep, the magic that hides a secret in a person's soul. I inherited it from an elder. Adam put Uther's arm around his shoulder and helped him up. Come on, let's go check it out. I'm not that weak. Oh. As soon as Adam let go, Uther faceplanted. If Adam hadn't caught him, he might have ended up with a nose like Dumbledore's. Ahem. Under Adam's knowing gaze, Uther blushed and changed the subject. This house does look a little old. But the construction is great, so you don't have to worry about it falling apart. Adam could see he was embarrassed and didn't push it. He led Uther into the safe house. My elder used to live here. I got rid of all the personal stuff like sheets and blankets. I'll get you some of mine later, they're unused. As for clothes, towels, etc. Adam glanced at Uther's empty hands. We're about the same size, so you can borrow my new clothes and towels for now, and we'll go shopping tomorrow. Tuya might have been okay with roughing it, but Adam wasn't about to let Uther live on a don't starve standard. Thanks. Uther plopped down on the couch, touching the arm that had been around Adam. He frowned. Maybe it was his imagination, but his arm felt like it had a phantom pain, similar to when he'd been burned before. What's wrong? Adam noticed his movement. It's nothing. I just threw up a while ago and feel like my dinner was wasted. Uther turned to Adam, looking hopeful. Adam, do you have any midnight snacks? Yeah, I'll run home first, tell my parents what's going on, and grab some necessities. We'll have a barbecue tonight. Barbecue. Uther had no idea this barbecue was going to be completely different from anything he'd ever experienced. A new world of food was about to open up. Yeah, I'll be right back. Little, green, frog. Adam used the childhood nickname to catch Uther off guard. After Adam disappeared with the move card, Uther stared at the indentation Adam had left on the sofa and suddenly had a feeling that his next month in England might be rough. Chapter 95 Egyptian Specialties. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes. Awesome. This is great too. Keep hogging, and I'll eat the rest myself. Adam just stared. User had mutton, chicken legs, and pork belly crammed in his left hand, steamed buns, rice cakes, and enoki mushrooms in his right, and his face was shiny with grease. Oh. Uther quickly ducked his head and focused on eating, maybe it was because he needed to keep his mouth busy. After a while, Uther looked up. Hey, Adam, why don't you sell this at school? I swear, this barbecue is as good as your desserts. Humans are hardwired to love sugar and fat. The smell of sizzling grilled skewers with a sprinkle of cumin is just as tempting as the sweet aroma from the pastry shop. Too much hassle. Besides, I'm already done selling desserts. No way. Barbecue has to be made fresh. I can't just whip it up with gone cards. Plus, it's only good for a few people. How could I sell it? Besides, Adam had already opened enough dessert shops. When school started, he was planning to hand them over to Bernard and the others to run. No way was he expanding into a new business. Uther could only sigh for the other Hufflepuff students. They were missing out. Hey! Adam, you're eating all by yourself. A shout rang out, and a golden blur dropped from the sky, nearly landing in the charcoal grill. Luckily, Adam was quick. Careful. What a goofball. Food makes her IQ drop to 0. Sibby fluttered down, looking at Xiao Ku with a shake of her head. Then she gave Adam a bright-eyed look. Adam, I want some too. Okay, I'm grilling. You can eat what's on the plate for now. Sibby scurried over to Adam's plate, grabbed a juicy, broth-filled mushroom, and popped it in her mouth. Ooh. Hot. This time, Adam didn't bother using the illusion card or sound card to cover things up. Uther stared at the two strange creatures, mouth slightly agape, then he quickly closed it. That was close. He almost dropped his pork belly. After chewing and swallowing quickly, Uther looked at Adam. Adam, are they? Oh, right, I forgot to introduce you. This is Xiao Ku, and this is Sibby. You've technically known them for 2 years. So they are. They're phantom cards. Uther suddenly understood, and a series of memories flashed through his mind. So, when you talked to them before, you were actually talking to them. Yep. Xiao Ku, holding a piece of grilled fish and tofu, waved at Uther. Hello. Hello. Uther hesitated a moment, then asked, what are you guys? We're not animals. We're sealed beasts. Sealed beast? Think of it as a special kind of magical creature. Sibby was almost done with the mushrooms. Oh. Uther nodded. Anyone want the treasure in my hand? Me. X3. The three of them reacted instantly, then all started thinking, what treasure? Because Uther was a cat person, he already liked Xiao Ku and Sibby. After the barbecue, they were even closer, and the two beasts quickly befriended him. It's good to see you're getting along so well. They'll be taking turns being your roommates this next month. Roommates. Uther, who was chewing on boneless grilled chicken feet, stopped and nearly dropped them. He just stared at Adam in shock. Yeah, the safe house protected by the Chi-Dan loyalty curse is a little isolated. We can't communicate quickly or easily, and you'll probably get lonely living here by yourself. We also provide pillow service. Xiao Ku struck a cool pose, but in energy-saving mode, any pose just looked cute. Pillow. Uther looked Xiaoku up and down. You're a pretty small pillow. Xiaoku immediately transformed into his original form. Whoa. Uther's eyes widened. Awesome. Before Uther could get a good look, Xiaoku changed back. Wait, I didn't see it clearly. Why are you usually so small? Easier for eating, duh. Easier. Uther picked up the chicken feet he had dropped and held them next to Xiaoku. Those take a while to eat. Isn't it even harder? You can spend half a day chewing on a chicken foot. Isn't that fun? Faced with Xiaoku's pointed question, Uther looked at the boneless chicken feet in his hand and sank into thought. After finishing their late-night snack, Uther's first day in England was coming to a close. Hey, Adam. Yeah. Never mind. Adam looked back and saw Uther, hesitant and fidgeting with his blanket. Adam sighed. Oh, never mind. I'll go grab the quilt and tell my parents. When he got home, Adam told Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee he was staying the night. Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee exchanged glances, then spoke carefully. Adam, if there's someone you like, you can bring them home. No matter what. Huh. We're open-minded parents, and we trust you to take responsibility for your own feelings. Well, actually. We don't mean to pry. We're just curious about your future partner. Stop. Uther and I are just roommates and good friends. Adam's face turned red. Don't be so open-minded about this. Then Adam sighed and lowered his voice. I didn't explain before, but Uther's been through a lot. He just escaped danger and lost his father. Too much happened today. He must be in pain right now. Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee exchanged another look. Their earlier thoughts vanished, replaced by worry. Were you in danger today too? Adam looked at their faces and touched his neck. This might sound bad, but I wasn't really in any danger. I even brought back some Egyptian souvenirs. I'll cook them for you sometime. The jackal-headed man, curled up in the quilt after eating, suddenly shuddered, sat up, and looked around nervously. The runes on the left were still sleeping, unconscious, under the basilisk's threat, and the manticore on the right was dancing in the moonlight. The glass jars were lined up on the shelf on the first floor of the safe house. The jackal head was too far away to see them, so he scratched his head, pulled the small quilt over himself, and went back to sleep. Ugh. In the darkness, Uther clutched his arm, biting his lip to keep quiet. He didn't notice a pair of eyes silently watching him. Footsteps sounded upstairs, and Uther quickly went still. Soon after, Adam pushed open the door, holding a quilt and pillow. Over here. Uther put his quilt on the side, then smiled as Adam laid out the quilt and pillow on the bed. Drink a glass of milk before bed. Adam snapped his fingers, and a cup of slightly sweet hot milk appeared on the nightstand. Uther reached for it, and Sibby jumped onto the bed, lying down beside Adam's pillow. After they each drank a glass of milk, Adam turned off the light. Good night. Good night. In the darkness, Adam subtly moved his fingers, and the dust from the sleeping card soothed his troubled thoughts. Uther's slightly furrowed brow slowly relaxed, and he fell into a deep sleep. A dark tail flicked in front of his eyes, and Adam looked at Sibby, who seemed to want to say something. Adam, I just saw. Chapter 96. It's your own fault. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uther grimaced, clutching his arm. After SPI's story, Adam couldn't shake the image he'd seen earlier. Was it just an illusion? Adam's first thought was that his vision might be acting up. He quickly pulled Uther's hand from under the covers and pushed up his pajama sleeve. His arm, normally the color of wheat, showed no sign of injury, no mark. Could it be a consequence of his soul getting burned by the flames? Adam, unsure what to do, told SPI and Xiaoka what he'd seen and asked, "What do you think is wrong with Uther?" "I think it's the same as you, Adam. Soul damage, probably." SPI answered. Adam nodded, then waited, but Xiaoka remained silent. He turned to see that Xiaoka had fallen asleep. using Adam's legs as a pillow, asterisk whatever asterisk, Xiaoka isn't as knowledgeable about souls as SPI. Let the kid sleep. Ouch. Momo looked away from Xiaoku, who'd accidentally fallen, and Adam considered Uther, deep in thought. Physical wounds can be healed with fresh white essence, but soul damage. How do you fix that? It hit Adam that there didn't seem to be any cloud card suited for healing. The time card was the only one that might work, but he hadn't mastered its magic yet. Simply using the cloud card to activate it wouldn't be enough to rewind Uther to a time before his soul was damaged. After a bit of thought, Adam knew of only two possible treatments, potions, or phoenix tears. Even though Adam was an advanced student, healing souls with potions was still beyond him. He'd have to ask Professor Snape when school started. Phoenix tears might work. He'd try them on Uther when he woke up in the morning. For now, with the sleep card in effect, Uther wasn't likely to wake up anytime soon. At worst, he'd have a nightmare or two from the pain. Serves him right for being so stubborn. Time for bed. Adam tossed the quilt back and lay down. Xiaoku, who'd groggily climbed back onto the bed, tumbled back to the floor again. Ouch. Ah. Huh. Adam woke with a start. Ouch. He kicked the quilt off Xiaoku, and curses brewed on his tongue, but when he turned, he saw Uther curled up beside him, drenched in cold sweat. After a silent string of curses, Adam glanced out at the still dark window and stared at the sky for 3 seconds, wondering if this was God's punishment for not treating Uther last night. 3 seconds later, Adam sighed and removed the sleep card's magic from Uther. Uther woke with a groan. No need to hold it in, you've been moaning for ages. Adam rolled his eyes at Uther, who was trying not to cry out, and switched on the bedside lamp. Hold on, let me grab something for you to try. Before Uther could say a word, Adam had slipped on his shoes and teleported downstairs. In the blink of an eye, he was back by the bed with a basin of water. Soak your hand in this. Uther wanted to point out that this was likely a soul-level issue, not fixable with medicine, but seeing Adam use such a simple water-soaking method, he didn't know what to say. Hurry up, it's getting heavy. Do it yourself. Adam put the basin in front of Uther, grabbed his hand, and plunged it into the water. Just as Uther was about to speak, a cool sensation spread from his palm up his arm, and the pain began to subside. It's actually working. Uther's eyes widened as he stared at the basin. Hey, judging by your face, it's actually working. Adam nodded, pleased. He wouldn't have to drag him to St. Mungo's in the middle of the night after all. He decided to go back to bed. What's in this? After the initial shock, Uther realized the basin wasn't filled with ordinary water. How could soul burns be treated with just water? Phoenix tears. Phoenix. Uther searched his memory for some magical creature called a fox, but came up empty. Still, the name sounded familiar. Combined with the tears, he realized, this must be Dumbledore's phoenix. The liquid in the basin was phoenix tears. Uther got so excited, he nearly knocked the basin over. Where did you get so many phoenix tears? Asterisk, you didn't torture Fox, did you, star? Fox gave me a bunch, and I have double cards. Remember the other heart. Adam pulled the quilt to his shoulders and waved vaguely at Uther. Next, you can rub it on your head when you have a headache, rub it on your feet when you have a footache. There's a whole tub of it in the bathroom. Tomorrow. Don't bother me before 8 a.m. Good night. Adam pulled the covers over his head. Uther opened his mouth, then, seeing Adam's lack of interest, he silently grabbed the basin and headed to the bathroom. The next day, Adam woke up refreshed, but Uther was nowhere to be seen. Did he fall asleep in the tub? Don't drown. Adam hurried to the bathroom and sighed in relief. Uther wasn't in the tub, but the tub was full of water. Uther kept the water. He thought he could reuse it. Adam wordlessly used the vanishing card on the water. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, he went downstairs to find Uther wandering around. Both Adam and Uther tacitly avoided mentioning the previous morning. Uther was probably embarrassed for holding out for so long. If he'd spoken up, Adam would have fixed it right away. Adam secretly enjoyed Uther's guilt. School was approaching, there were no strange textbooks to buy. Uther's luggage had already been sent to Hogwarts by Tuya. He turned down his grandparents' offer to escort them, and the two headed to King's Cross Station. Oh, long time no see, Adam. Such a loud voice could only be Cologne. Cologne zipped towards Adam like a rogue bludger and hugged him, then spotted Uther. Why are you guys here so early? Cologne noticed that Uther's clothes were odd. They looked like the Muggle styles Adam and Bernard wore, and Uther had no luggage. You guys. Chapter 97 Uninvited Guests. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wow, you guys had a whole adventure without us even knowing. Bernard and Cologne dramatically lamented after Adam and Uther quickly recapped their summer vacation. Uther tensed up. Adam glanced at him and quickly covered their mouths, blinking like crazy. Given their connection, they were practically mind readers. Seeing Adam's look, plus Uther's weird behavior, it was clear as day, this was something they couldn't, or shouldn't, talk about. The two of them blinked to show they got it. There's nothing to tell. My dad died there. Uther's words dropped like a lead weight, silencing everyone. After a few seconds, Cologne spoke. Uther, you've been holed up with Adam ever since you got to England. You didn't even hang out with us. Yeah. You got to eat Adam's cooking for a whole extra month. Bernard chimed in. To avoid being found by those enemies, I spent a month in the safe house Adam set up. I couldn't go out. Bernard and Cologne exchanged a look, their faces mirroring each other's helplessness. That killed the conversation. Finally, Adam came to the rescue. It's almost lunchtime. Let's eat. In Hufflepuff, when in doubt, food is always the answer. As soon as the words were out, everyone grabbed their matching unicorn horn chopsticks and stared at Adam, eyes gleaming. Tiger skin chicken feet, crab dumplings, crystal shrimp dumplings, dry steamed siumai, custard buns, red bean paste buns, barbecued pork buns, sticky rice chicken, white cut chicken, lotus leaf chicken. Unlocking the magic of his enchanted cards. 6 stacks of platter-sized steamers materialized on the table, one layer on top of the other, all steaming hot. As each layer was devoured, they were set aside. To wash it all down, Adam had brewed a pot of chrysanthemum and licorice tea. I've missed Adam's cooking so much. Cologne took a bite of the boneless tiger skin chicken feet and was so overcome with emotion he almost cried. My sister's even worse. She hasn't been able to stop thinking about Adam's rice balls since last year. I'm starting to think she's losing it. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Bernard took a tiny bite of a lava bun, blew on the slightly hot filling, and took a second, bigger bite. I don't think a totally sane person would order the fish in a stargazy pie to sing a chorus. Hearing this, Bernard stopped chewing mid-bite. The fish in a stargazy pie, singing. Yikes. Eugene, what's wrong? Adam took a sip of tea. The combined sweetness of licorice and chrysanthemum made him feel refreshed and happy. He then noticed Eugene silently picking at the shrimp dumplings. Empty plates are happy plates. The 6 shrimp dumplings in the basket weren't even as big as a palm, but Eugene hadn't even finished one after 3 or 4 bites. Something was clearly bothering him. I'm fine. Eugene barely got the words out before Adam sighed and gave him a hug. Why do you guys always bottle everything up and refuse to talk? Ahem. Cologne, who had been watching Eugene with concern, looked at Uther with curiosity. Uther, what's wrong? I'm fine. I just choked. I was eating too fast. Uther's face was flushed. He quickly took a sip of tea, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and started rummaging through his pockets. He seemed very flustered. Oh. Cologne nodded and turned back to Eugene. Seriously, even if we can't fix anything, it'll make us feel better if you tell us, you know? Eugene was silent for a few seconds, and then finally nodded and revealed his thoughts. At the end of August, my parents sent a letter to my grandmother, saying that they'd made some new discovery, and would be back to see us next year. So, you're not seeing them this year either? Yeah. The compartment fell silent again. Compared to his roommates, Adam thought about his own situation and how he didn't go to China this year either. Of course, his was a different situation than Eugene's. No matter what the reason was, his relatives in China hadn't contacted him, or even Ms. Lee, in recent years. Although he loved Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee, that was the result of their years of unilateral love for Adam. Adam, once an adult, wasn't so lacking in love. After bringing Uther back to the UK, Adam told Ms. Lee that they could still go to China within the next month. It wouldn't take long to see them, but Ms. Lee hesitated and said they could go next year. Ms. Lee, who had finally calmed down, was now hesitating. Adam felt no guilt for breaking their agreement. He didn't think Ms. Lee's expression was because she was homesick. All the signs suggested that his trip to China next year might not be so pleasant. In the end, Adam and his friends couldn't come up with a good solution. They couldn't exactly kidnap Eugene's parents, so they'd have to try to fill the void with food and brotherly love. Judging by the way Eugene was devouring the fried yellow croaker, it seemed to be working. Whoa! Uther felt a sudden chill in the air and couldn't help but rub his arms. Isn't it summer? Why'd it get so cold all of a sudden? The weather outside seems to have changed. Is it going to rain? As soon as Cologne said it, a drop of water splattered against the glass with a pop. Wow, looks like Cologne's divination grades won't be too bad this year. Bernard couldn't resist teasing. That single drop was just the beginning. Soon the rain was coming down in sheets. The raindrops pounded the moving train, and the windows rattled. After lunch, Adam and Cologne played a few games of wizard chess. Cologne, who was losing more than he was winning, couldn't help but peer out the window. This rain is so depressing, that the view outside was almost completely obscured. The only thing visible was a dark blur moving slowly, probably the distant mountains. The constant sound of rain, the darkness outside, the dampness seeping in through the window cracks, made the air feel heavy and stale. It was no wonder everyone was feeling down, but the Hogwarts Express slowing to a stop was definitely not normal. Are we there already? Uther frowned. If he was sensing things correctly. Unless the Hogwarts Express decided to take a scenic detour, we're still pretty far from Hogwarts. Bernard pulled out his pocket watch and checked the time. Oh my God! What's going on? Cologne suddenly spoke, and everyone looked at him to see that his hand was on the window, and the area of the window where his fingers touched was quietly being covered in a layer of white frost. Eugene wiped the condensation off the window, looked out, and only saw shadows, but it was enough to make him feel something was very wrong. There's something out there. After warning everyone, Eugene took a deep breath, couldn't help but step back a little, and put his hand over his heart. Why did he suddenly feel so awful? He'd thought it was nothing. Dad! Mom! Why? Expecto Patronum. A silver Maine Coon cat burst from the end of Adam's wand, darted around the compartment, and then sat on Adam's shoulder, staring at the compartment door with Adam. A dark hand was there, and it seemed to sense the Patronus's aura and quickly retreated, looking back at Cologne and Bernard, who were in bad shape, and Uther and Eugene, who were clearly not doing well either. Adam's face darkened. The influence of the Dementors can actually get through the shield's protection. Chapter 98 Friendly Sponsorship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There wasn't much time to dwell on Dementors and shields. The immediate concern was Eugene and Uther. Their resistance was basically zero after what they'd just been through. Eugene was in a kind of daze, mumbling incoherently with tears streaming down his face. Uther was even worse, lost in some kind of nightmare, his forehead slick with sweat. Cologne and Bernard noticed they were in trouble and kept calling their names softly. Adam thought for a moment, then reached out and took their hands. As his magic flowed, their faces visibly improved. So, love card magic really could alleviate the effects of Dementors. Adam wasn't exactly thrilled that his hunch had been right. The love card isn't a healing spell. If it could ease the Dementor's influence, he'd probably figured out why the shield hadn't worked. The shield's protection is like a force that maintains the status quo, unaffected by outside influences. Physical or magical attacks, even time magic, it could block them all. But it didn't stop the person inside from feeling sadness, despair, or fear. Apart from the Dementor's kiss, which he hadn't tested, it seemed their impact was purely emotional, which is why the love card magic worked. As for whether the Dementor's influence counted as an external force, Adam figured the problem probably lay with him. Dementors aren't exactly beings. They're not animals, but more like a phenomenon. So, their influence is different from the external forces Adam's shield recognized. The shield simply didn't see them as an external threat. That was likely it, but now that he understood this and had applied this patch, only time would tell if Dementors could still get through. While he was thinking, Eugene had already recovered, and Uther was coming around, though he still seemed drained. Here, eat some chocolate. Adam handed each of them a Ferrero Rocher. Adam, I want some too. Adam glanced at Bernard and Cologne, who were clearly eyeing the chocolates. He took out 2 more, and then, after a moment's thought, grabbed one for himself. What the heck was that? After eating the Ferrero Rocher, Uther couldn't help but ask, a mix of embarrassment and annoyance on his face. That was a Dementor. Hearing Adam's answer, Eugene frowned. Dementors, aren't they supposed to be in Azkaban? How could they attack the Hogwarts Express? Well, I think I know why. Cologne rummaged through his bag for a long time and finally pulled out a rolled-up newspaper. Ah! Here it is. I knew I'd used a newspaper to wrap the sausage. Cologne unwrapped the newspaper, took out 2 sausages, and put the newspaper on the table. Adam glanced at the wanted poster with Sirius Black holding his prisoner number. Even though it was greasy, he could still see the gloom and madness in Sirius's eyes. Sirius Black. Bernard held a corner of the newspaper and turned it over, looking at the description of the wanted criminal. Killed a whole street of muggles with a blasting curse. Bernard frowned. Shouldn't something like that be a death sentence? Wizarding courts are just as hypocritical as muggle ones. It seemed. The more Bernard learned about the wizarding world, the more grateful he was that his family hadn't run into any crazy dark wizards. Plus, how did Azkaban let him escape? How much did wizards really care about prison security? They already had magic, a few extra wards wouldn't hurt. So, that's what a Dementor looks like. First time I've seen one. So, the Ministry of Magic suspects this escaped convict might be on the Hogwarts Express. Uther scoffed. Then why are they using Dementors to search instead of doing it themselves? If Dementors could catch him, he wouldn't have escaped in the first place. Is everyone okay? Suddenly, the carriage door was pushed open. Cedric, panting, poked his head in. When he saw Adam and the others, his eyes lit up. Oh, it's you guys. Long time no see. Haven't seen you in a while. As long as everyone's alright, I'll check the next carriage. Cedric, as a prefect, felt it was his duty to check on everyone after the Dementor attack. Wait a sec. Adam, seeing that he only had a little chocolate left, stopped him, pulled a large bag of chocolate from his bag, and handed it to him. Take this and share it around. They were only 1 car away from the prefect's carriage, and they were already short on chocolate. Things must be bad. Thanks, that's a huge help. Cedric hadn't expected Adam to have so much chocolate on him, but he desperately needed it. He'd already run into several classmates in rough shape. Even if he rationed it carefully, it wouldn't be enough. I'll pay you back when we get back to the common room. Nah, I'll see if I can get the money from Professor Dumbledore. If not, consider it a friendly donation. Cedric paused, momentarily tempted to ask for more. But knowing Adam probably didn't carry that much chocolate around, he thought better of it. The express finally arrived at the station. As Adam got off, he carefully observed the students around him. Most seemed to be doing okay. The chocolate must have helped. Bundle up, keep warm. A cold gust of wind blew by. Adam rubbed his hands, took out his wand, and cast a warming charm on the group. Even though the Dementors had left the train, they obviously hadn't gone far. The temperature in the area was still freezing, and the sun was hidden behind thick clouds. It wasn't until they reached the castle that the temperature rose slightly. Good thing we followed Adam the whole way. Cologne muttered under his breath. While everyone in their dorm was more or less advanced in learning magic spells, Adam was the only one ahead in learning magic spells in life. The encounter on the train was the talk of the hour. The discussion in the Great Hall hadn't stopped from the moment everyone entered, even during the sorting ceremony. Quiet. Quiet. After the sorting ceremony, Professor Dumbledore's booming voice cut through the noise, and the hall quickly fell silent. Professor Dumbledore looked around. Everyone seemed to be okay. His gaze paused on the Gryffindor table, where a small section was empty. He continued, "Welcome back to Hogwarts, everyone." As he spoke, Professor Dumbledore raised his hands, as if to embrace all the frightened students and offer them comfort. Just then, the side door burst open, and the Harry trio scurried back to the Gryffindor table. Chapter 99 New Professor, New Order. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Professor Dumbledore glanced at Harry and the others, he announced, "Before we all enjoy dinner, I have an important announcement. As I'm sure you've all noticed from their search of the Hogwarts Express, our school is hosting some Dementors from Azkaban, sent by the Ministry of Magic on official business." The smile vanished from Professor Dumbledore's face, replaced by a seriousness tinged with disapproval of the ministry. They will be stationed at every entrance to the school, meaning no one is permitted to leave the grounds without authorization. No tricks, gimmicks, or disguises will fool them, not even an invisibility cloak. He emphasized the invisibility cloak deliberately. Dementors are incapable of reason or mercy. I solemnly advise you all not to give them any reason to harm you. I expect the prefects and our newly elected heads to ensure no student provokes the Dementors. Unlike Professor Dumbledore's instructions during Adam's first year, when few had ventured to the fourth-floor corridor, everyone had now seen the Dementors firsthand. A palpable gloom settled over the hall. Professor Dumbledore paused, his gaze sweeping toward Adam. "Now, let's move on to something more cheerful. I've received word that Mr. Adam Reed's chocolate proved quite comforting after everyone's encounter with the Dementors. Let's give him a round of applause for his thoughtfulness." Applause erupted throughout the hall, even the Slytherin table joining in. After all, Dementors don't discriminate by house when spreading despair, but Adam's attention wasn't on the students. He'd spotted Newt in the teachers' seats. I'm sure he wasn't expecting a reward, but as headmaster, I believe the school should cover the cost of those chocolates. The school board would foot the bill anyway, maybe even the ministry would reimburse them. Professor Dumbledore felt no qualms, even contemplating adding his own candy expenses to the tally. Adam nodded to Professor Dumbledore, signaling his understanding. "We'll discuss the specifics later." Professor Dumbledore winked in acknowledgement, then gestured toward the teacher's table. "Now, I'm honored to introduce two new members of our teaching staff." Warm applause filled the hall, mostly from Hufflepuff. First, Professor Scamander. Following Professor Kettleburn's retirement, he has graciously agreed to take over care of magical creatures for the year. The applause grew even louder. The combined cheers of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw threatened to bring down the ceiling. Oh my god. Newt Scamander. The author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is here. Newt, unsure when to sit, stood and nodded awkwardly, face down. All right, settle down." Professor Dumbledore used a sonorous charm to quiet the crowd, emphasizing that, due to certain circumstances, Professor Scamander could only teach for 1 year. This only slightly dampened the enthusiasm. Next, Professor Lupin. Due to last year's incident, our defense against the dark arts post is vacant once again. Professor Lupin has bravely taken on this responsibility. Professor Lupin, who stood and offered a polite nod, visibly winced at that phrasing, that doesn't sound promising, he seemed to think, however, remembering his previous living conditions and the promise of a Hogwarts professor's salary, along with Professor Dumbledore's assurance that the school would cover his wolfsbane potion for the year, Professor Lupin maintained a professional smile. Professor Lupin didn't have Newt's fan base, and the applause was a bit thin, making for a stark contrast. However, Professor Lupin didn't seem to mind. Newt, looking apologetic, clapped a bit louder. Professor Lupin returned a friendly smile. Well, that's all I have to say. Enjoy your dinner. As Professor Dumbledore finished, golden plates piled high with food appeared on the tables. A collective sigh escaped the Hufflepuff table. What's wrong? A freshman looked to the older students beside him. The food looked plentiful. You don't understand. A second-year Hufflepuff sighed. Had they endured the holidays just for this fishy barbecue? He glanced longingly in Adam's direction. After dinner, the unseasonable chill prompted Adam and his friends to plan a hot pot feast back in their dorm room. However, Adam was intercepted by Professor Snape. Making a wait-for-me gesture, Adam turned to Professor Snape. Professor, what did you want to see me about? Professor Snape swept into his office, his cloak billowing behind him, and sat down. Without waiting for Adam to answer, he asked, I recall you can brew Wolfsbane potion. A certain professor requires it this year, 1 bottle per month. Are you interested in fulfilling this order? Adam was stunned. There are so many problems with this statement. First of all, a certain professor. There aren't that many professors at Hogwarts. If they haven't needed it in previous years but do now, it must be one of the new ones. There are only 2 new professors this year, one of whom is Newt Scamander, and every Hufflepuff on campus would recognize him. Professor Snape, why don't you just say Professor Lupin's name? Secondly, my shop doesn't sell everything, especially not potions. The school board will cover the cost of the Wolfsbane potion. Considering the limited stable sales channels for potions, we can offer you a 70% premium. I will provide the ingredients. Okay, maybe selling potions isn't such a bad idea. The main reason I haven't been selling them is because both the defense against the dark arts professor and the potions professor have needs in this area. One wants to drink it, and the other doesn't want him to drink it. How can a considerate badger sit idly by and ignore this problem? No problem. Adam agreed immediately, then paused. Are there any additional requirements? Professor Snape narrowed his eyes, crossed his arms, and raised his chin. For example, do we need to place any restrictions on the flavor? Adam adopted a busy bee demeanor. Because I'm usually researching new dishes, I might accidentally add something to the potion that makes it taste a little strange. If necessary, I can make a separate batch of Wolfsbane. Professor Snape's expression turned intrigued. That won't be necessary. You'll be taking electives in your 3rd year, and your time is already limited. I believe as long as the efficacy of the potion isn't affected, the professor won't be too harsh on such a minor issue. After a pause, Professor Snape unlocked his cabinet, retrieving a golden potion bottle no larger than half a palm. If you find your studies overwhelming, you must take breaks. Clearly, Professor Snape wasn't good at direct expressions of concern. His statement was delivered dryly and awkwardly, but Adam didn't seem to notice. Carefully accepting the bottle of Felix Felicis, Adam couldn't help but think of the lengths Professor Snape had gone to just to obtain it. Don't worry, Professor. To ensure the potion's effectiveness, I'll make sure the professor has plenty of Wolfsbane potion. I hope he doesn't mind drinking several bottles at a time. Professor Snape's mouth twitched unnaturally before he finally said, I think he won't mind. Chapter 100 Quidditch Test. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adam, ugh. Bernard burst into the empty classroom, expecting to find Adam. But he recoiled, stumbling back, and had to take several deep breaths. You. He paused, trying to place the smell. Did you spill the soy milk? Huh. No, I'm brewing a potion. Adam added a final ingredient to the automatic stirring crucible, studying the color with satisfaction. Almost there. Just needs to cook for 12 more hours. Potion. What kind of potion smells this awful? Bernard finally managed to ask. Wolfsbane potion, bean juice edition. Adam nodded, Pleased, his experience flavoring the twins' prank candies had taught him how to tweak the flavor without ruining the potion's effectiveness. Thanks to a certain potions professor's anonymous request, this Wolfsbane potion would yield a couple extra bottles. Wolfsbane potion, Bernard shrugged it off, whatever. You still up for the operation? Cologne and Eugene have their team tryouts this afternoon, and we said we'd go cheer them on. Sounds good, let's go. Adam set the alarm and followed Bernard out. You missed it this morning. The Nimbus 2002 delivery was a whole thing. Nimbus 2002, Adam thought for a second. I thought the Firebolt was supposed to be the hot broom this year. Could be. I don't know the details. It was a rare, beautiful day, especially with the Dementors usually hanging around. They arrived at the Quidditch pitch to find a crowd already gathered. The Hufflepuff team, decked out in canary yellow and copper brown, looked ready to go. Uther spotted them and hurried over. You made it. Come on, we're in the back. Back? Yeah, all the official team members are up front. The tryouts haven't started yet. Eugene and Cologne are in the back. They found Eugene and Cologne in the back. You guys are here. How do I look? Does this fit? Cologne did a little spin, the uniform was a bit off. Cologne was skinny, and the shoulders were a little too wide. Adam waved his wand, fixing it instantly, and gave him a thumbs up. Perfect. Then, Adam glanced at Eugene, who was chatting with another Quidditch player. Eugene, tall and muscular, filled out the Quidditch uniform perfectly. The goalie's armor bulged slightly, making him look like a solid wall. The older student, about the same size as Eugene and wearing the same uniform, clapped him hard on the back. That's Senior Opofew. He's leaving the team this year but thinks Eugene's got what it takes. Cologne explained. Opofew, the previous goalie, was amazing. He barely let anything past him. The Hufflepuff team's problem had always been catching the snitch. Cologne added that Eugene was the only one who applied for the goalie position, and with Opofew's endorsement, it was practically a done deal. I'm not so sure. Cologne sighed. There are 3 of us trying out for beater this year, and I'm not exactly built for it. He meant his size. Don't worry, we know you can do it. Skill matters way more than size. Uther reassured him. That's right. You'd think Seekers should be tiny and quick, but look at Victor Crumb, he's built like a bear and still kills it. Opofew, having finished talking to Eugene, overheard them and slapped Uther on the shoulder. He'd forgotten his own strength. Oh. Sorry, force of habit. Apofer apologized quickly. It's okay. I'm used to it. A flicker of confusion crossed Apofer's face. Uther rubbed his shoulder, remembering when he and Eugene first became friends. Eugene would do the same thing, but even harder. Everyone looked at Eugene. Eugene turned and started stretching, avoiding their stares. Bernard checked his watch. Looks like they're about to start. We'll head to the stands, then, and watch you guys. Drink some water, relax, and trust yourself. I'll cook you both a feast later. The 3 of them headed to the stands. Eugene was up first. It's probably just a formality. Bernard said, shaking his head. Not really. Goalies have to be good, or they'll get cut. Adam countered. Look over there, those guys seem pretty impressed with Eugene. Bernard looked and saw several official Quidditch players nodding in agreement. Later, Cologne's performance was decent, but not spectacular. Only time would tell what the final result was. The Seeker tryouts were particularly fierce, with 12 people competing. Cedric snagged the enchanted golf ball 3 minutes ahead of everyone else, so that competition was all but over. Cologne looked worried after his tryout, focusing on his shortcomings. Adam tried to cheer him up. Hey, don't dwell on it. Worrying won't change anything. Just think about what we're gonna have for dinner. Maybe Cologne loved food more than Quidditch. In any case, he focused on what to eat tonight and stopped worrying. Since Cologne and Eugene couldn't decide, Adam offered to make hot pot. They started with grilled fish, then added broth and hot pot ingredients. Everyone was happy, especially since the grilled fish had no bones. The first class on Thursday was divination, held with Ravenclaw in the North Tower. It's rare for Adam and the group to be so high up. When they reached the top floor, they didn't see anything, but hadn't reached the divination classroom yet. It was a cramped space. Someone found a trap door in the ceiling, but there were no stairs leading up.